Okay, so the poem I chose to do was on page 112 and 113 of The Faces of Love. I don't know how to pronounce it, but basically the first thing that I noticed when I was reading the poem was the repetition of the phrase stays like this or won't stay like this, and that's something that I'll talk about throughout my entire presentation, but that's the first noticeable thing that I saw when I first read the poem. For example, some of the things that the author mentions that do stay like this, things that don't go anywhere, are are grief and pain and status and rank, as well as larger things such as life, wealth, and light. He talks about how dawn doesn't stay like that. And I think it's really representative of a lot of things in our life that we think are permanent, that once one acquires wealth, that wealth will stay with them throughout their life. And as well, that life is a semi-permanent thing. Obviously, we understand that all humans have mortality. However, we like to think of life not as much in a linear way, but rather as a large concept of time. And the author simply mentions that it's not. And one of the main things that he mentions that does stay like this is compassion or lack thereof. So when there's a lack of compassion or when there is a large amount of compassion, compassion never dies. Compassion is not something that's fleeting. And that's the main thing that the author harps on, or at least that I noticed. My favorite line happened to be, "Only compassion does not die but stays like this." And I think that's the most important thing to take away from this poem, is that compassion is not going anywhere, and that compassion is the most important thing. You don't have to understand somebody and where they're coming from. You don't have to understand and be honest. There's a bunch of things that people feel obligated to do, but in the end, the only thing that people need to do is be compassionate. And he additionally says at the end that the heartlessness she's shown to you will stay like this, and shows how that lack of compassion, that heartlessness, that lack of empathy stays with a person and does not last just with life or one day, or with someone's rank or trust. That lack of compassion lasts forever. And I think that really applies to what we've been learning in class with companionate and passionate love, is that all those things that don't stay like this is that passionate love. The passionate love where it spikes up, and that's a really strong feeling, a really strong emotion, and then it comes down, and it doesn't, that strong going up and that strong height doesn't stay like that. Whereas with companionate love and with compassion, it's something that stays like that. It's something that stays constant and doesn't go anywhere. It's not fleeting. And format and spacing of each verse is represented of a larger thought, and then smaller of the addition of the words excluded from the bigger sentence. So when it has the long thought and then it stays like this or won't stay like this, it's more of an afterthought. However, the impact is almost greater because of its brevity. So you have a larger statement that has a lot of power packed behind it, but then for the statement to either negate it or affirm it at the end is increasingly powerful with the amount of words that it uses. And another thing that I noticed is that the phrase "stays like this" literally stays throughout the poem, and is something that is reoccurring throughout the entire poem, and builds on the irony of how love and passion are fleeting, yet the pain that it leaves behind stays. In conclusion, the author speaks about heartache, but the poem overall has a very positive spin to it in terms of the author knows what heartache feels like, and also has hope for life beyond that heartache and beyond that pain, and knows that pain and that grief and that suffering won't stay like that.